Sharri Markson, a national political editor for the Daily Telegraph in Australia, joins us live from Sydney. Now, you've written a lot about this. It's created a real firestorm down under. What is your view as a successful female journalist in Australia? Did you like men being banned this morning from the airwaves?
When I first heard about it, I thought it was completely outrageous. You know, women should be in these positions because of their own merit and talent. And yet the taxpayer-funded public broadcaster, the ABC's like your BBC, they've kicked all men off air for the entire day. And not just television, but radio as well. All male presenters have to go home so that women can fill their positions. I just thought it was completely outrageous when I heard about it. You know, really patronising and insulting to women to think that we need men to step aside so that before we can get ahead. So we put it on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, which is the big selling tabloid in Sydney, and the issue just took off, and there's been a lot of different opinions on it, as you can imagine.
So Sharri, it sells newspapers for you, which is good news. Let me just put the other point, which is that there are lots of women who would support an idea of this, like this, because they say for so long we have got used to all male lineups in broadcasting, you know, on boards of companies, at the top of industry, in government. I mean, we only have our second female prime minister. That is great progress, but sometimes we just get used to all male faces. So why not have a day when we say, well, this is what it would look like if it was all women? And the fact that people get so exercised about it shows how rare it is.
Yeah. Well, because it's tokenistic, it's not a real move to have women in these senior positions. It's just one day a year. I mean, what happens the other 364 days? And also, can you imagine the outrage, seriously, the genuine uproar if it was reversed? If we said, oh, you know, it's International Men's Day, let's only have men in all of the jobs.
This is the point, isn't it? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the point is that it has been for so long reversed, that we do get used to the fact that men in these positions is the norm. And this is so rare that it is the fact that it's making headlines that makes people realise it is not normal for women to occupy all these positions. It's not actually
normal anymore in television to just have men. This hasn't been the case.
Now it isn't.
It hasn't been the case for several decades. I mean, my argument would be, I'm afraid I'm with Sharri here, because my argument is that things have moved very fast and completely in the right direction. I think it is tokenistic now to do this. There would be uproar if it was all men, but you just don't see all men now on television.
Which is why don't we have an International Men's Day? The reason that we have an International Women's Day is because lots of people think every other day is a day dominated by men.
Yeah, but you're saying that, hang on.
Let me put it to Sharri.
Well, before we go to Sharri, I would say this. In Britain, currently, as I keep saying, the five most powerful people in this country are currently women. The Queen, the Prime Minister, the First Minister of Scotland, the Home Secretary, the head of the Met Police. Women are absolutely kicking butt in this country.
Which is fantastic and something to be celebrated.
So you
but
don't
still
need to
only
have
a fraction of our MPs.
Why have this thing that's happening in Australia? Sharri, over to you again.
Yeah. Well, I think in the corporate world and in you know, many senior companies, there aren't enough women. You know, we know that. That's a global trend, particularly in the UK, the US and Australia. But then we need people to commit to employing women, to find more ways of having senior women who are mothers, flexible working arrangements, addressing the pay gap, which is a big issue in Australia at 17%. But the answer to it, the solution, isn't to ban men. You know, none of us should want to get ahead by banning men from coming to work on one particular day. It's patronising.
Well, I remember a great quote from Oprah Winfrey, who is indisputably one of the most successful people on planet Earth, and is a woman, and also a black woman, who had to face sexism and racism. And she recently said that the best way to deal and tackle and to defeat racism and sexism is excellence. That actually, if women are just as good or better than men at the very same jobs, that shines through in the end as the greatest way to defeat this. Sharri?
I totally agree with you. I think it comes down to working really hard, being talented, and if your work shines through, you know, you are going to be promoted and you're going to get those jobs. I'm sure, Piers, you're not there because you're a man, you're there because of your hard work and excellent wit.
Well, thank you, Sharri, for identifying the qualities that I think my co-workers, who, by the way, are mostly women, they sometimes overlook the reason I'm here. In fact, Susanna sometimes asks herself, why is he here?